This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Hello everyone, Andy Pickering here. Welcome to the holiday edition of the Crypto Conversation. We're republishing some of the best episodes of 2021. This one is from way back in January, almost a year ago. This is my chat with Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch. Yes, I really enjoyed this chat. It seems so long ago. Of course, Mooch, super famous for his short-lived but very entertaining tenure as the White House comms director under President Trump. But of course, you know, Mr. Scaramucci, Anthony the Mooch, also has a long career in investment banking, and he's the founder of Skybridge Capital and the Skybridge Bitcoin fund. So, you know, when we talked back in January, this, you know, Bitcoin was relatively new for Anthony, but, you know, he'd gone in quite deep, as you'll hear. And so thanks to Bitcoin's, pretty good year. I mean, it's been down a little bit in December, but, you know, over the course of the year, Bitcoin has had a good year. So people like Anthony have done well. And yeah, that's good to see. He'll just continue to bring new capital to the ecosystem, I'm sure. But of course, we also talk about Anthony's time under President Trump, what he thinks of Biden, all that stuff. So this is actually, it's a really entertaining listen. So I hope you enjoy it. Just before we get into it, let's have a quick shout out to our sponsor, and then we'll get on with it. PRIMEXBT, of course, is an award-winning Bitcoin-based trading platform with over 50 assets, including crypto, forex, commodities, and indices. And to provide the highest level of liquidity, PRIMEXBT aggregates feeds from 12 industry-leading exchanges and data providers. PRIMEXBT offers high leverage, going up to 100x on crypto assets and as high as 1000x for the traditional markets, with an interface that is suitable for both professional and beginner traders. PRIMEXBT is also home to a co-vesting platform which allows users to apply the copy trading strategies of the most successful professional traders. All right. Just check them out today at primexbt.com. There'll be a link in the show notes, of course. But for now, it is on with the show.
Yeah, boy!
My guest today is Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch himself. Anthony is best known for his short-lived but very entertaining tenure as the White House Communications Director under President Trump. But as it turns out, Anthony has had a very long career in investment banking, and he is the founder of Skybridge Capital, a global investment fund that has just launched the Skybridge Bitcoin fund. Hey, welcome to the show, Anthony.
It's great to be on. Thank you for having me. And I love the fact that you're in New Zealand talking to me from the future. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, indeed. That is how we like to talk about the world. From our perspective here in New Zealand, we are, you know, perhaps down the bottom of the world, depending on how you look at it. But we do tend to live one day in the future, depending on what time zone you're in.
Well, it's one of the more beautiful places. But I appreciate you. You mentioned my short-lived but entertaining stay in the White House. You know, it was entertaining for everybody but for me, man. That was one painful stay in the White House. But, you know, the good news is now we're all past it, and we've got a new administration to look forward to, and hopefully these guys will do a good job, particularly with the pandemic.
Yes, indeed. And look, Anthony, there's a lot to talk about today. So, you know, depending on how we go, I'd love to briefly touch on, maybe your time in the White House and what you think Trump does next, but we'll save that for the end of the show. Also love to get your take on the GameStop situation, which is happening right now, because that is, that's really interesting. And I know you have perspectives on that, but look, we are here to talk about Skybridge and Bitcoin. So I think we should start there. So I guess to begin with, Anthony, do you want to just give us some quick background on Skybridge Capital?
I think so. Probably benefit your listeners who know me from the White House. My I'll give you my career in 30 seconds or less. Okay.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a blue collar family. I ended up going to a school in Boston called Tufts University. And then from Tufts, I went to Harvard Law School. I thought for a minute I was going to be a lawyer, but I ended up going into investment banking. I went directly to Goldman Sachs. I spent 7 years at Goldman. That was the first part of my career. I left and started a registered investment advisor. So I was a financial advisor at Goldman. Started an investment advisor, sold that investment advisor to a company called Neuberger Berman, which at that time was publicly traded. Neuberger was sold to Lehman Brothers, if you remember Lehman, which was the largest bankruptcy in US history during the financial crisis. But I was at Lehman. I was there for a couple of years. I left to form Skybridge in March of 2005. So this coming March will be 16 years old. Unless my 11-day fiasco in the White House, I've been at Skybridge Capital, building Skybridge. Incidentally, James Packer, who's well known in your area of the world,
Yes.
A company that he controlled for about 10 years, owned a piece of Skybridge. They bought our shares maybe in 2006 or 7. I subsequently bought it back from James and that entity about 3 or 4 years ago, but they made a lot of money in those shares. And I've been in your neck of the woods, tried to get down there twice a year while Challenger Financial Services owned our company. And so I came back to Skybridge in 2017 after my fiasco in the White House. And the first thing I did was register the URL skybridgebitcoin.com. I thought that at some point we would be in the digital space. I was studying that space since 2014. It was going through a major crash course correction, 20,000 a coin down to 3,000. Yet I thought that there was a lot of consolidation happening and an expansion of that network. I wrote down in 2017, if the following 3 things happen, Skybridge will cross over into the realm of digital currencies, digital store of value, and we'll start with Bitcoin. Here are the 3 things quickly. Number 1, scale. I really felt that you needed at least 100 million users on what I would call the Bitcoin monetary network. Number 2, which rubs originalists and rubs Bitcoiners the wrong way. Most Bitcoiners are libertarian, but I'm more of an institutionalist when it comes to money management. The second factor would be regulation and taxation. I really felt that once it got big enough where governments were interested enough in it and they would figure out how to tax it in the United States and put it on the tax forms here in the US, then all of a sudden it's an entity that the governments are, I don't want to say respecting, but they recognize size and scale, and therefore they want to figure out a way to tax and regulate it. That means it's getting ready for the early adoption cycle to end, to go into something that's a little bit more mainstream. And then the third thing, and arguably the most important thing for me, was storage. You know, you're a coiner, so you know, I don't want to store the coin on the USB or my phone and have a SIM card transition, God forbid. There are places to go. Coinbase is a good place, but people get phished at Coinbase all the time with these crackpot emails. And I know countless stories where people have been bewitched at different places. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to find a place like a Fidelity, which turns out that's going to be our custodian, where you have cold storage disconnected from the internet, and you have the layer of additional insurance from somebody like Lloyd's of London. So when those things came to place in 2020, we put $25 million of the firm's capital into Bitcoin. That was probably late October, early November. We launched the fund to outside investors January 4th. The market has corrected a little. It was up a little. I'm guessing now, I'd say we have about $65 million in the fund. If you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said we had almost $80 million in the fund. And we're taking in daily subscriptions in our fund. And what I like about our fund, we try to design what I would say is a better mousetrap. It's designed for registered investment advisors. It's designed for mass affluent people. So it's a $50,000 minimum. You don't have to worry about storage. It's at 75 basis points, and you get the NAV of the coin. You know, your listeners know you can go to places like Grayscale Up until recently, you were paying a premium to own the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, and you're paying 2% on management fees. Now, the difference with them and us, you get to trade out of it every day if you want. Because we're a limited partnership vehicle and we're subjected to limited partnership law in the US, the shortest duration we could have on our fund was 90 days. And so that's our fund. In addition to our fund, I scaled into Bitcoin for our other fund properties. So I've got a few hedge fund management advisory funds, and we probably put $330 million into Bitcoin over the cross section of those funds. So all told, Skybridge has about $380 to $390 million in Bitcoin right now. And I do see, for many reasons, why this is an asset of the future. This is a storage functionality. When people tell me, well, it's worthless, it's just a code, a computer code on the internet, they're misunderstanding that network, and they're also misunderstanding the history of money and the history of value transfer. One last point I want to make, and I'll make it very quickly, is that there's a baseball card in the United States that Mickey Mantle's face is on. He was a very famous center fielder for the New York Yankees. He represents an iconic status in America of that young hot dog eating 1950s baseball superstar, post-war Americana. And so this card is very rare. Well, 2 weeks ago, it traded for 5.2 million US dollars. So when someone tells me that Bitcoin's worthless, how about a baseball card that is a piece of cardboard that was cut into a rectangle in 1956 and 4-color process print was put on both sides and is now selling for $5.2 million. I think people need to take a step back and recognize what value is and the association of value for human beings in our society. And when you step back and you look at Bitcoin's scarcity, its fungibility, you look at the network, I think Bitcoin is actually undervalued where it is right now.
Very nicely said, Anthony. And look, it's hard not to agree with any of your thesis there. And, you know, you cover this off really well all across the Skybridge Bitcoin website. And also there's a deck there that I guess potential investors can download. And you make a really good, I think, even just like an introductory overview in that deck. There's a really good thesis. And one of the points that you make is you talk about how Bitcoin is perhaps, you know, the first asset class in the history where average people, retail investors, or, you know, the kind of the tech nerds have had a shot at it before institutions, before Wall Street, before the billionaires, but that window is closing, and that window is closing fast, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I think it's closing fast in terms of price appreciation. I think the great news about it, it's never technically closing because, as you know, retail investors can buy Satoshis, they can buy slivers of Bitcoin. But I think you're making a really excellent point. What you're basically saying is this is part of, and we'll get to GameStop in a second because I actually think they're all connected. This is part of a decentralizing movement and the further democratization of finance. And so what's happening with Bitcoin is the discovery of it, the creation of it by Satoshi or the group called Satoshi or the individual, and the explanation of what it is. And remember, it was built on the shoulders of other giants. There was DigiCash and other types of cash-like instruments, technical or technological cash-like instruments, but I think Bitcoin took it up a notch. And I'm going to say, for the sake of this argument, and we can debate it, they perfected it. I think Bitcoin is something that is an irreplaceable asset in terms of impregnability, easy to store, blockchain transferability, which is precise and organized and also secure and established. There's no quote unquote double spend. You and I can talk about that if you want, but I think people that listen to your podcast know we can prove empirically that there's no double spending or any of this sort of stuff that happens. And unfortunately, when you have something this new, the old guard has a very hard time accepting it. And so they get resistant, they get volatile about it, they start making stuff up about it and all this sort of stuff. And that's normal for what's going on. It's the same way people were poo-pooing Amazon or Facebook or Google years ago. I'm reminded, I'm old enough to remember in 1993, 1994, at the introduction of the Netscape browser, and once the browser was launched, Bill Gates said that the internet was a fad and that it wasn't something that was going to last or be anything more than a passing fad. Something was said about the horseless carriage, by the way, in the turn of the 20th century, said, well, the horseless carriage is a fad. We'll be back to horses before long. And the point being that it's hard sometimes to accept change. We're wired to resist change. But I think that this is an important point. It germinated decentralized. It gave the opportunity for people to buy it at a retail level. And it's one of the more unique moments in financial services history where the pyramid has been flipped over. So the retail investor is getting access prior to the institution, and the retail investor is actually mainstreaming it. And literally, because of its acceptability and scalability, is making it easier for the institutions to consider it an asset class. Now, one last point on this, I think this is also important, is it is the advent of that decentralization. So you're in New Zealand, so my sports metaphors about baseball probably won't be there, but maybe it's the first minute of a rugby game. It is not the last minute of a rugby game. And so for me, I'm watching this decentralization movement. I quipped on Twitter this morning that we're in the French Revolution of finance, meaning the proletariat is rising up and wants to bring down the existing order structure. And why are they capable of doing that? Well, they couldn't have done that in 2008. The smartphone wasn't robust enough. It wasn't enriched enough. The internet wasn't what it is today. Even this Zoom call probably didn't exist to this level of sophistication in 2008. But they can do it today in 2021. Why? Well, we have costless trading through Robinhood and other functionaries. We have costless data. Some of us pay $3,000 or $4,000 a month to Mike Bloomberg for his terminal. Other people are getting costless data. It could be a few seconds delayed. In some cases, frankly, if you have a Robinhood account, it's not delayed at all. You're getting that real-time market transactionable data. And so all of this technology, which has brought trading down to a zero, has allowed for bee swarms of micro investing. And so GameStop would be an example of that. What's happening with AMC movies is an example of that. You have pillars of the hedge fund community or pillars of the money management establishment recognizing that the future for GameStop, because of COVID-19, downloading video games, improvement in video game architecture, it may be a passé thing to have a retail storefront that's selling games, selling game cartridges, et cetera, or game consoles, a result of which they're shorting that, expecting it to go to zero. Same thing's going on in the theater industry. Our computers are becoming 4K, 8K. Our TVs are becoming 8K. The TV screen in my house is embarrassingly large, and there's a subwoofer behind the furniture, and all of a sudden you have this surround-like experience. And so, wait a minute, why am I going to that movie theater? I'll make the popcorn and I'll bring it into my family room. And so those shorts are being challenged by the micro investor and by Reddit and the Wall Street betting community, because Robinhood has turned this into almost like a game technology. This is like, instead of playing Fortnite or playing Call of Duty, we're going to play with some money, and we're going to play in this realm. And that's changing the landscape. And I made the point to a woman in Singapore last night on Bloomberg that it's more evidence that Bitcoin's going to work. Because what is the property that allows Bitcoin to work? It is the scalability of the network. And I can also, I don't have my charts with me, but you could go to the website, skybridgebitcoin.com. I can make the case to you and your listeners that Bitcoin is priced off of the number of users. Go look This many people own Bitcoin, that's the price. This many people own Bitcoin, that's the price. This many people own it, that's the price. Of course it's oscillating. Of course it's oscillating. It's a new technology. It's a new adoption curve. Go look at Amazon 12 years after it went public. Go look at the first 6 months of the IPO of Facebook. Go look at the first 6 months of Google. Amazon has dropped 50% 6 times since its initial public offering. But as you get more users, as you get more shareholders, as Jeff Bezos reduces his position and venture capitalists reduce their position, and you get more diversity in the holdings, you get more stability in the prices. And that is going to start to happen for Bitcoin. And by the way, I would tell people that are listening, and they probably know this, this is still very early innings. I like Bitcoin more at 30,000 than I do Bitcoin at 400. Why? Well, Bitcoin at 400 was still unproven. Bitcoin at 400 was still competing with other digital currencies to reach the escape velocity to become effectively the Bitcoin network / standard. But a Bitcoin at 30,000 with 140 plus million users, it has slayed everybody else. It has defeated, it has come under contact and competition with 6,500 potential coins. It has slayed every one of them. That's where my thinking is on all of this.
Yeah, and I think that's right, Anthony. And you make a good point, because from a one perspective, what you're essentially saying is that Bitcoin has been very much de-risked, right? So, a good way of understanding this is, the idea that nobody wants to be the first. But then you reach a point where nobody wants to be last. And so while there used to be like this serious amount of career risk in being associated with or recommending Bitcoin, that is now flipping, and soon it will be a career risk not to have a position or not to be able to recommend a position in Bitcoin. But I know it seems like, this is quite good timing for you guys and your fund, Anthony, because, you kind of set up just before we kind of doubled in price at the end of last year. And then now just last week, it emerged that, Harvard, Yale, these university endowments, they've been quietly buying Bitcoin for the last, up to 12 months. And they're really just starting to announce that now. And presumably there'll be a lot of other institutions that have been doing the same thing. So, but talk to us a little bit about what kind of interest you're seeing in your fund, because, you've got your fund, then you've got the likes of MicroStrategy and what Michael Saylor's doing in his big conference next week. So there is, there's a lot of chatter. What are you seeing in terms of inflows?
Well, we benefited from our entry because we're in the 16, 17,000 zone.
Yes.
So that's 100-ish% to go. So we benefited from our entry point. But I think we started the fund on January 4th. The thing literally spiked to 42,000, came back down to 30. It is for the clientele that I'm involved in. This is a frontier move for them. This is not buying General Motors in 1950. It's not buying Intel in 1990. It's not buying Tesla in 2021. This is a frontier move for classically traditional investors that read a Graham and Dodd book or read a book about 60-40 portfolio investing. So have we done well? Yes. We've got, several $1 million a day coming into the fund, but the coins did correct about 30% in a 2-week period of time. And for high net worth retail, that has a tendency to slow down their appetite. Yes. Flip side is, and the irony is, if we're right about the fundamentals, this is absolutely the best time to be layering and buying. And so I can tell you that Skybridge has been buying. I can tell you I personally have been buying. And my attitude is I've got myself set up on a schedule where every week I buy a few coins to add to my coin collection inside of my fund. And I believe long term, that's the right thing, because if I'm right, whether we buy these coins at 30, 40, or 50,000 a coin in the next 6 months, when they're 300,000 a coin, we'll look back and say those were good purchases. Doesn't matter if it was 31,000, 28,000, 37,000, it's not going to really matter. If the adoption curve or Plan B stock flow chart comes to fruition, you'll be at half the market capitalization of gold in 3 to 5 years. That's a $5 trillion market cap. And, if Michael Saylor, you mentioned him, if he's right, it'll be 2x gold in 5 years. And in Michael Saylor's case, what he basically decided was, okay, I've had my eureka moment. I think Saylor had it because I talked to him about it. He had it in July of last year. What is the eureka moment? The eureka moment is, oh my God, this is a monetary network. We've improved medical technology. We have sonography. We developed radar during the Second World War. We have rocket technology, landed people on the moon. We're advancing as a society, and technology is helping that advance. The phone I'm talking to you from, if we decide to call each other, is an advanced phone relative to the phone that my parents would be able to talk to you from. And my grandparents, it would take them a half hour to get an international line to reach you down in New Zealand. I'm now talking to you costless over the internet on my computer screen, but this phone has more technology in it. It's more robust than all of the computing power that landed the Apollo men and on the moon. So why am I saying this? So we've advanced everything, but we didn't advance our money. We left our money unadvanced. Okay, we started with wampum. We started with gold. Then we decided that we were going to trade gold coins that had the stamp or the profile of our political figures on them. We were doing that in Rome. We did that in the Middle Ages. We're doing that today. And then wait a minute, now we have digits in a bank account. So I can go look at my bank account. You can look at your account. We see digits in there, and then we're comfortable. Well, that's our money. But what is that effectively? All that is a ledger between us and our society. I have more digits in that account. I have more OZs that I can put forth into the society. And so this brilliant invention of Bitcoin allows us to decentralize. It takes the whims of central bankers out of the equation. We have 23.2% more dollars that have been created as a result of these crises, pandemic and otherwise, in the last 6 months. And yet you could sit here on this Bitcoin platform and we can transact and push value to each other in this decentralized way. So the eureka moment is, whoa, there is a full-on monetary network, like there is a retail network, Amazon, like there is a social network, Facebook, like there is an ad and search network, Google. Oh my God, there's a full-on monetary network. Wait a minute, this thing's probably worth 5 or 10 trillion. What is it trading at? Oh, it's trading at 100 billion. Okay, well, 100 billion is a significant number because now I know it's in escape velocity mode. When Apple was at 100 billion, people said, whoa, that's at 100 billion, no mas. Now it's at 1.4 trillion. And I can tell you that Amazon, when it was 12 years old, if you and I looked at a stock, we would have said, oh my God, this is an amazing run. This thing is just too high. That's Bitcoin at 30,000. And yet 12 years hence, Amazon, if you were smart enough to buy it 12 years ago, you've had a 64x move in the price of Amazon. So to me, what Saylor has seen is this is the best thing that he can find for his capital at MicroStrategy. He's going to run a software business, but he's going to put his excess cash into Bitcoin. Oh, by the way, might not be a bad idea because every dollar that he puts it in, the Fed has just told you, they said it again today, they're going to print another 15 to 20% more of these dollars. You're not printing another 15 or 20% more of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only thing in our society right now where if the demand goes up, concomitant to the demand, there's no increase in supply. You know, believe me, when people want Tesla shares, there's a sausage factory in the back of Tesla. They're printing out Tesla shares. Okay, people want dollars, they're printing out dollars. You know, free market mechanisms of supply and demand. If oil prices are going up, we're drilling for oil everywhere to meet that demand and produce more oil, not Bitcoin. And so that's the eureka moment. And I think Saylor, this program, which I've been involved with and I'll be a participant in next week, is really trying to explain that to a bevy of chief financial officers of publicly traded companies that need to hear this so that they can say, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to have all of my money in cash. or U.S. Treasuries, maybe I need to own some of this.
Yeah, I think, that's such a good way of understanding Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a money network, and anyone who has any experience in investing in technology or watching technology networks, whether it's, Amazon or Facebook or cell phone adoption or anything like that, you just, once they reach critical mass and that adoption curve starts going up, yeah, exponential growth happens fast. We've seen that with the pandemic as well. All right, well, let's go to a very quick break. And then when we come back, I've got some more thoughts on GameStop, Anthony, and we'll get your quick comments on the geopolitical scene, what's happening with the new Biden administration, and perhaps what happens next for Trump. We'll be back in 1 second.
For crypto indices and benchmarking, Brave New Coin's powerful indexing engine can calculate high-frequency intraday and end-of-day indices for a wide range of index products. Brave New Coin's custom indices team delivers experienced consultancy, premium data, and trusted calculation. Contact BNC today to find out more.
Just to bring it back to the GameStop saga, Anthony, I sent a tweet this morning that, to me it feels like the GameStop incident or saga or whatever you want to call it. It's like a kind of a proxy battle that is really representative of so many shifts in society, whether it's, Bitcoiners versus gold bugs, millennials versus boomers, the emergence of DeFi, decentralized finance versus legacy banking, Robinhood traders versus the high frequency trading shops, Elon Musk versus or legacy automobiles, the battles that Tesla have had to go through, and the memers versus the more serious suit guys. It's just fascinating to watch, right?
It's fascinating to watch, and here's what I would say to people. We have a tendency to be blockheads, if you don't mind me saying so, myself included. I've looked at situations like Amazon and, well, I can't justify it based on a value perspective, right? But then you're missing somebody like Bill Miller, a very famous value investor that converted to growth. He would say to you, well, your brain, you're psychologically and sociologically designed for rigidity. You don't want change because change takes you out of your comfort zone. But your brain is neurally plastic. You have neuroplasticity in your brain where you can stretch it like City Poly and you can get it to work in different ways, and you have to embrace that. And once you embrace that with something like Bitcoin, it's interesting. Warren Buffett's age 90. What do you think of Bitcoin? He says it's rat poison. Bill Miller, age 70, 20 years younger than Warren Buffett, but still an old timer in our industry. He says, well, yeah, it probably is rat poisoning, but the rat is fiat currency. Now I'm years younger than both of them, and I'm looking at it. I'm a classically trained, conservative, institutional-oriented investor. That's what I am. And so a self-described fuddy-duddy. Yes, I have a flamboyant personality because I'm a New York Italian, and I was Trump's communications director for 11 days. But to go from my blue-collar household to where I am now, which is some measure of the American dream and some measure of financial independence, it required a very grounded in fundamentals investment strategy. And I have missed, and I will confess this to everybody that's listening, I have missed these movements in the past, but I'm not going to miss this movement. Whatever training I've had, whatever mistakes I've made in my life, whatever observations I've made about the world of finance and the world of technology and adoption curves, or S-curve transformation, Bitcoin is doing that. Now, will there be other coins? Sure. Will there be other currencies? Sure. When you get to $1 trillion in market cap as a store of value or currency, Bitcoin's in the top 5. So I want you to stop and think about the scale of this thing and the magnitude of it. And so it's been chopped back to $500 billion right now, but so what? The potentiality of this thing is nothing short of phenomenal. And I think it would be a mistake not to understand it. And I think it would be even a bigger mistake to do what we often do, which is we sneer at things that are new. We don't want to be caught being stupid. We would rather avoid something and miss the opportunity than to be caught stupid. I've got barking dogs on Twitter that bark at me every day telling me I top tick Bitcoin and I'm an imbecile. And you've got the Peter Schiff ingrates that are out there saying nonsense.
Yeah.
But I would argue that they're the intellectually vacuous ones. They're the ones that are not embracing the future, and they're the ones that are not seeing it. And by the way, that was me on a number of different points in my life. And I'm just asking people to step back, look at the world the way it is, not the way you want it to be, or not the way you learned it in a textbook or a business investment book. Look at it the way it is. The world is changing rapidly. The digitization of money is upon us. There will be a digital yuan. There will be a digital dollar. There will be, and I'll make this prediction on your show, and I haven't made this prediction elsewhere, there will be forces related to Bitcoin that affect central bankers, meaning Bitcoin is going to force the hand of central bankers to the side of conservatism so that they don't lose their handle on whatever hegemony they have in their realms. And I think that that's something people need to understand about what is happening in the world. Bitcoin, weirdly, from a policy perspective and from a social good perspective, is actually a force for good and is almost forcing, through that decentralization, a regulatory mechanism back on the regulators, if that makes any sense to you, and I think it does. And that's what's happening also with Reddit as it relates to short sellers. And that's what's happening to the market. The market is, because of the wisdom of the crowds and the decentralization, the overall markets are actually benefiting from that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think it does, Anthony. And look, you know, we could do a whole show on what the geopolitical implications are once Bitcoin starts to achieve scale. And we could see, you know, the Chinese Communist Party going to war with the USD via Bitcoin. Anything can happen. But look, I know you've got a tight schedule, Anthony. So let's finish this off. I'd love to just finish off if, you know, whatever thoughts you might have just in terms of the new Biden administration coming in, what you think what plays out for Trump across 2021. Yeah, how confident are you in Biden and his various picks and the kind of the regulatory environment for Bitcoin and crypto? Just any thoughts at all? Go for it.
You know, I'll be overly simplistic, but here are my thoughts. Trump was out of control. He was a full-on liar. He added $8 trillion to the deficit, and his legacy will be that he made our country weaker, sicker, and poorer. He malpracticed on the pandemic. And then on the way out the door, he tried to undermine our democracy. Okay, so, you know, I made it very clear that I apologize for supporting him in the beginning. That is a clinical assessment based on facts of what Mr. Trump did to the American society. So Joe Biden, whether you like him or not, what does he represent? Well, he's 47 years as a pillar of Democratic Party politics, and he's a pillar of the political establishment in the United States. What does he represent? He represents centrism. He represents core bureaucratic competence. If you look at the way he's rolling out a plan for COVID-19, he's also recognizing, to the consternation of right-leaning people, that we've got something bizarre going on with the climate. And so we can debate that. Okay, I'm with the scientists on it. I think we're damaging the climate. If I'm wrong and it's not us damaging the climate, what I would argue is, let's say you're a climate denier listening to me, I would say, well, don't you still want clean air and clean water for your children? I mean, let's say I'm completely wrong about the climate effects. You've got 85% of the children below the age of 7 in Beijing suffering from asthmatic-related illnesses. So let's stipulate that we're wrong about the climate. You still want to go in the direction that Joe Biden is championing or John Kerry is championing. And so to me, this was a seismic change for good. Do I love the excess regulation? I don't. You know, you can sense from me that I'm more of a libertarian than anything else. I don't care what's going on in your bedroom. and I want people to live a independent, liberal, and I mean liberal in the word Western liberal individualism. So do I love ponderous government? I don't. But do I like competent people in positions? I do. And so I think Joe Biden, and this is the most amazing thing I could say, is that Joe Biden has way more self-confidence than Donald Trump. Because my observation of Mr. Trump when he was president, my 11 days with him, and then just me observing him, is that he couldn't handle the experts because he didn't feel confident. So if someone came into the room that was smarter than him, he tried to steamroll them to prove to them that he was the bigger ape in the room, or king of the mountain. Joe Biden's the exact opposite. Joe Biden's like, okay, I'm going to turn this over to the experts. He has the self-confidence that is allowing someone to be capable of delegating. So are we going to get a perfect presidency from Joe Biden? No, but this is a dramatic improvement from Donald Trump. And this will hopefully put the country on a better course to heal the economic divide, which is furthering the anger. I'm sorry, give me a second here. I think I have a 5:15 call.
Yes.
But I just finished the sentence. The economic divide is got to be closed, and I think Joe Biden can do that as well.
All right. Hey, I really appreciate your thoughts, Anthony, and look, thank you for talking to us today.
Great to be here. Let's do this again, please. Maybe you can come on my podcast if you have an interest.
All right. Hey, sounds good. All the best. All right. Thanks, Anthony. All right. There you go. That was the Mooch. Bit of a funny podcast, that one, wasn't it? I feel like, Anthony, he is a professional talker, so he just kind of talked. Had a few other things I wanted to get to, but didn't. And it would have been nice to do the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round with Anthony, but as you can see, we ran out of time. He had a Bloomberg call, I think, and so there you go. Wasn't meant to be. Never mind. Hope you enjoyed that. I did enjoy that, even though it was kind of a strange one. So I will put links in the show notes to Anthony's Skybridge Bitcoin fund. Have a really good website with a lot of different resources on there. But yeah, I think that is us really. So hey, thank you for listening. We will see you real soon. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin.